How are you doing, everybody? Welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today, I'm going to be talking about a really good drill, a solid drill, something that you can do at home to improve your hip action. How you move your hips in the golf swing has such a huge influence on how you deliver the club on the back of the ball that it surprises most golfers. Golfers that I work with, I would almost suggest 90% of the time, we are generally doing something to improve the pivoting action. And I would also say maybe 50-60% of the time, they're surprised by how much of an influence changing how the hips move has on their golf swing. Now, on a recent video on the channel, what we did is I did a reflection video. Okay, so it was a video that was targeted for golfers who maybe don't have the opportunity to hit balls. And that might just mean at the moment, because you're sort of locked down and all these places are closed, or it might be just because you're so keen on practicing, but you've got work, you've got family life, you don't have much time, but you're keen to do something. So in that video, I sort of outlaid the fact that you can improve and develop your game, but by videoing your swing. And I gave you some really solid reference points of things that you're trying to do. And in today's video, you're going to see some references back to this as well. In a follow-on video to this as well, I'm going to be catching up with one of the online students, Stefan, who had a huge improvement on his hip action in the golf swing. So these sort of three videos will really tie nicely together, and I'd strongly suggest that you watch all three of these. So the first things first is to talk about what it is that we're trying to do in the golf swing. So the backswing position, once you're kind of set up, what you're trying to do in the backswing position is you're basically just trying to make sure that you turn your shoulders to 90 degrees worth of rotation. And you're also just trying to make sure that you get the right hip working back, okay? So behind your ankle line, so to speak. So this basically just means making sure that right hip is working back in that backswing position whilst making sure you turn to 90 degrees. That's the sort of simplicity of it. And that's what I talked about on that video about drawing that line on your backside and making sure you get back there. This is conscious competence. This is making sure that you know that you're actually doing the thing you think you're doing, which, let's be honest, we all slip up on. We all think we're doing things that sometimes we're not actually really doing. What should then happen as we initiate the downswing, and this is the thing that most amateurs struggle with, is that I keep my right hip back. So as I initiate the downswing, what I should now do is pull my left hip back without my right hip coming forward. Okay, now what happens with most golfers is that as they start to pull the left hip back, the right hip comes forward, and this is called spinning out. And this can cause discrepancies like steepness, which means that the shaft can start to come down too steep. It can cause discrepancies like over the top, where golfers just come massively over the top. It can cause golfers to try and combat this by, so the list is endless, okay, to why this one simple tip can have such a huge impact on everything that you're doing. And it sounds obvious. You go right hip back, left hip back. Yep, fine, perfect. How do we do it? Well, the drill's very, very simple. Basically, what you're trying to do is that you want to, at home, get yourself, yes, you knew it was coming, a chair, okay? But what you're trying to do with the chair is not just about staying in contact with it, okay? So that basically means not just making sure that once you get set up, you're trying to push your hip onto the chair. That's definitely part of the conversation. But what we're also trying to do is that we're trying to understand the importance of this trail side as we start the downswing. And like I say, this drill is something that I've been doing a lot with online people recently. So if I kind of swing up to the top of my backswing and pause, and then using the face on camera here, if I put my right hand against the outside part of my right thigh, or wherever you end up at the top of your backswing position, you can place a piece of tape or some sort of marker as a reference so that you know the location of that trail hip position, okay? Now the simplicity is what you've got to do is you've got to keep your trail hip there as you pull the left hip back, okay? So similar to this sort of motion here. Now what is happening here is that basically, if you look at my legs, you can see the way the upper part of my back in the backswing, the upper part of my trail leg, it points away from the target. And the reason why this happens is because basically we turn the hips and the hips move the leg. And then as I start my downswing, because I pull the left hip back, you can see the way that both legs now point away, don't they? So my left leg starts to point towards the target as my right leg points away from the target, and this is known as the squat move. What happens though is that most amateur golfers clean the chair, which means that they move this way. So that means that the trail hip starts to clean the chair, and it's cleaning the line. See the way that my trail hip now is coming the opposite direction. And if you look at my trail leg, this means that the trail leg is kicking in. So the problem is that if you're somebody who's tried the chair drill before, what you'll notice when you have the opportunity to practice this drill is that even if you do it incorrectly, you can get your right hip and your left hip on the chair. But the importance is more about making sure that we don't spin out, which means that we don't want the right hip going away from the target. We want the right hip staying where it is as we pull the left hip back. That's a really, really important thing, because as I sort of tried to highlight on the videos when we were talking about the reflection, you can look from a face on camera angle, but the likelihood is that most people tend to video more from the side on perspective. And plus, we're going very much back to this realms of conscious competence. And if you're never practicing an element of conscious competence, then how do you really know whether you're doing it? And that's why that drill becomes really, really important. And like I said, you're going to see this with the case studies of golfers upcoming. It's like not only does the hip action improve your hip, it obviously has a massive influence on how your hands and arms are swinging as well. So my suggestion is to do the drill. When you're doing the drill, you've got a choice. You can either do it in front of the mirror, or you can flip your phone around and record yourself doing it. Use the selfie mode, you know, the front-facing camera. Or the other option is that you can just look at the position of your hip. But being able to do this is a massive influence on the style of the downswing. Because like I said earlier, what happens when you spin out is you'll be more prone to swinging over the top or too steep or just compensating. And if you can keep the trail hip back, then what you'll start to notice is that you just have so much more space to be able to let your arms, shall we say, work more in front of the body. Golfers that feel like their hands get stuck towards the side of them, it's because of this spinning out motion. So have a go at the drill. It will have a huge influence. And if you're somebody who's been videoing your swings and you know that transition isn't quite right, then 100% do the drill. And hopefully that will really, really help you out. Remember, it's free to subscribe. Press the little bell icon if you want to make sure that you basically don't miss any more upcoming videos. Catch up with you guys again really soon.